Hello, friends, and welcome back to Pick and Roll. We are very excited to be back in 2025 to give our in-depth breakdown and predictions for the March Madness bracket. I'm your host, Kody Webb, and of course, I'm joined by my co-host. He is the Vlad Golden to my Danny Wolf, Carter Sims. How's it going, Carter?
I love that Twin Towers action. Feeling good. I just finished filing a lawsuit to the NCAA, a la West Virginia style. So it's great. I'm here, and it's the best time of the year, baby. We get the Oscars and we get March Madness. What better Venn diagram for the two of us than this? So it's the best time of the year. Love it.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I am jacked to be back. Probably just going to be a one-off episode. We might do a reactions if one of us has a very good bracket. I think that'd be fun. But
Me.
no promises on that. Yeah. So for this episode, like I was saying, we'll just do our normal in-depth breakdown of kind of the first round games, talk about our favorite matchups, our favorite players, all that good stuff. But before that, too, kind of just wanted to jump into to a little bit of the bubble talk, since it's obviously been a little bit
Ooh.
crazy this year. So just the overall recap. First off, the new and improved SEC conference got 14 bids, which is a record by, I believe, two or three bids, which is pretty insane. Big Ten had eight. ACC and Mountain West both had four, which I love that stat. But of course, the bubble was the big talk. Last four in were San Diego State, Xavier, Texas, and North Carolina. We'll talk about that. And then the first four out
Yeah.
were West Virginia, which you mentioned, and then of course IU. And honestly, I kind of just want to start here to throw it directly to your thoughts on the Hueys, but I thought they should have gotten in. But what are your thoughts?
First, the caveat. I think you and I both agree. West Virginia definitely should have been in. But now, speaking of the Hueys, we got some great overlap. We just took their coach today, about 45 minutes before we started recording. So Indiana just hired DeVries away from West Virginia. As an IU fan, you don't want to be in the position to begin with that we were in of
Yeah,
having to
that's fair.
sweat it out. Like we should never be in that position, first of all. So I even said, if we beat Oregon in the Big Ten tournament, maybe we're in. But based
For
on
sure.
seeding of some of these tournament teams and games, I don't think the selection committee really gives a shit about committee or conference tournaments. I think we've done that for a while. Maybe they don't really change their seedings comparatively, but anyway, all that to say, I was disappointed that Indiana didn't get in. Felt like a snub, especially over North Carolina, which I think was a travesty. I know. Were you as outraged as I was when you saw North Carolina in there sneak in?
I wouldn't say the word outrage, just because being a Purdue fan, I do think it's pretty funny that
So it is
Hoosiers
hilarious.
missed the tournament.
It is
But
hilarious.
yeah, it's very puzzling, specifically the North Carolina inclusion.
Yeah.
You can pull a million different stats when trying to determine which teams to put in, which teams not to put in. The most I feel like consistent one that people use is like quad one wins, which just
Yeah.
talks about how you performed against other good teams, which I think
Mhm.
is relevant. And of course, North Carolina was like 1-11 or 1-12 in quad one games. And then
Yeah.
IU, I believe, had like four or five quad one wins, especially when you stack up these teams on paper right next to each other. It's very difficult to see how they came to this, resolution of putting them into the tournament. We'll see. Maybe they'll make a massive run and shut everybody up. But I highly doubt it. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that massive dub that IU got against Purdue, I thought vaulted them in at that moment.
Yeah. I mean, it
Oh,
was that. We had Michigan State at Michigan State. That felt like the biggest of all for sure.
oh yeah,
And I agree. The committee said, oh, they didn't take advantage of their quad one wins, and I was like, and North Carolina did. They didn't take advantage of their quad
right.
one opportunities. I was like, in what world? But I mean, and to your credit, also, I think West Virginia deserved to be in more than Indiana. And then also the committee's reasoning for that was like, well, their best player went out, and that was a factor with Tucker DeVries. I
Yeah,
wouldn't even really consider him their best player though, also, and they were still winning when he went out. I don't know. And I don't really. I'm not going to go down the corruption angle that
right.
North Carolina's AD is the head of the selection committee. I don't think it's corrupt. I just think they're just inept at their job. But yeah, I think they blew it in some areas. But what can you do? The bubble's always fun to talk about. But
Yeah. I love bubble talk.
Yeah.
We've had whole episodes in the past about that.
Oh yeah.
But I do agree. I mean, it's hard for West Virginia just because I think everybody thought that they were pretty much in. I kind of do see the angle where it's like they didn't finish the season off very strong. They had a bad
Sure.
loss in the what conference are they in? The Big
The
12
Big
tournament.
12. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, there's too many conferences these days. But they
There
lost
are
to
too many.
Colorado in the first
Mhm.
round, which was a bad loss.
Yeah.
And yeah, using the
Okay.
Tucker excuse, I guess that makes sense. But at the same time, I mean, if they were in before that loss, you can't really use that.
Yeah.
And then also too, I feel like the only argument really to put North Carolina into the field is non-conference strength of schedule. Because
Mm.
Carolina, I mean, they played a boatload of good teams. Auburn, Bama, they were in Maui, played a lot of good teams there.
Yeah.
Versus IU, I mean, they played what, South Carolina and a couple other
And we
smaller
got
people.
we got rocked in the Bahamas by
Oh
Louisville,
yeah,
Gonzaga, but
hindsight,
in hindsight, not bad, but they were ugly losses. And that was when Indiana looked, like dog water at that time.
yeah.
Yeah.
But Carolina had bad losses too. I mean, they lost to Stanford at home, a few
Yeah.
others
It's,
for sure. But strange
yeah.
altogether, it's kind of like the committee. They're similar to the Oscar committee. I don't expect them to get it right. So when they do a couple things right, I'm proud of them. But yeah, like I said too, we'll talk about the seeding with some of the Big Ten teams. It doesn't make any
Sure.
sense
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
But I did want to quick predictions for the first four games. The first game tonight is Carolina versus San Diego State, which is interesting, and then Texas and Xavier's tomorrow. What's your
Mhm.
quick predictions for those games?
Well, first of all, I'll just say that one of those 16 seed games is going on as we speak.
True.
But I haven't tracked that at all. I don't know. I feel like, yeah, there's this narrative that, North Carolina will come in and prove everyone wrong. And then there's the inevitability of just San Diego State coming in and saying, fuck that. I don't know. I got a little bit of a hunch that maybe I'd like to pick the Aztecs tonight. I'll put it on record that I'm going to pick them. And then just a little spoiler, I am taking whatever 11 seed there in the next round as well. So that's my prediction there.
Love that.
And then it's close between Xavier and Texas, but I think I might roll Texas. But if you ask me tomorrow, I might go Xavier. I like Sean Miller more than Terry. I think Terry doesn't really know what to do with his team at times, and I feel like Sean Miller has a good grasp of his team. They're playing better towards the end. So I don't know. What do you think? Are you leaning differently than me? Are you rolling Tar Heels, or what are you thinking?
I'm definitely rolling Aztecs. I mean, they have the.
Mountain West, baby.
I'm a big Mountain West guy, obviously too, but they have some experience. You know, obviously a couple
Yeah,
years ago, went all the way to the ship, so coaching
mm,
experience in the least.
for
But
sure.
I mean, Carolina being a blue blood and RJ Davis obviously, made a deep run, so maybe that balances out. But defense is beating offense, I think tonight for sure. I'm gonna predict RJ Davis just absolutely lays an egg. So if he goes off, Corbin, call me out in the edit.
Tar Heels holding a 4-point lead. This is Davis, pulls up, buries it. Cadeau, a masterful handle. Davis, deep shot. Shot clock didn't reset, it's at 6. Davis, little bump, fires over BJ Davis. Just couldn't put it down. His first game in 3
He
weeks.
shoots him out of the game. Yeah,
I don't like their odds tonight. And then I agree too. Texas Xavier is actually one of my more anticipated games for the whole tournament, or at least in the first
yeah.
round. Two very hot teams. Texas finally healthy. Tremont Marks, one of my favorite guys to watch.
Mm,
Kendall Weaver too, crazy athletic. And I did pick Texas to win a game as well upcoming. So
very
fun stuff
nice.
there. But we will be watching the games in Dayton over the next couple days for sure. But the main event clearly is going to be the first round and the second round starting on Thursday all the way through the weekend. I could not be more excited if I'm being completely honest. And like we're saying, that's where we're going to start. Is just breaking down the first round games for each region and then giving our overall predictions for those regions. We'll start off in the South region. We'll kind of just go through this, how it was revealed by the committee, which I'm kind of a proponent of. But for the South region, like I said, we'll start off with the good matchups off the bat. So we're always going to talk about the 8-9 game as one of those toss-ups. And I'll say too, for most of these best matchups that we'll talk about for the entire episode, a lot of them are like coin tosses in my mind.
Mm,
These are supposedly two teams that are pretty similar in how good they are. Some matchups have been like that, some not so much. We'll get into, but for these specifically, I would say I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'll give these. So take
Same.
this advice with a grain of salt.
Yes.
But like I said, we'll kick it off actually with the first game of the tournament on Thursday as well, and that's going to be Louisville versus Creighton, which I think is a very fun matchup. A really fun thing, I believe it was yesterday. One of the last AP polls came out, and the Louisville Cardinals were the number 10 ranked team in that poll. But
Yes.
they're only given an 8 seed here, which is much higher than number 10 ranking in my math, at least. So I thought that was interesting.
Your math
Then,
checks out.
thank you. Quick math. I like them a lot. Chucky Hepburn, I'm not a big fan because he banked in a three to win the Big Ten against Purdue,
Mm.
but he's had a hell of a year. Pat Kelsey, everything he's brought to this program, I really do enjoy. I think I am going to lean them, barring a few guys who are injured are supposed to be back. But this should be a hell of a first game. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is electric that this starts off the tournament. Absolutely bonkers matchup. I agree with you. I think Louisville will have a chip on their shoulder here. I think I envision just Pat Kelsey just kind of losing his shit at being underseeded like this. And I think that's also just, the ACC's pretty much, I guess, blatant disrespect by the search committee, other than, I guess, North Carolina, which I guess, but other than them and Duke. I'm also kind of giving the edge to Louisville here, just for the fact that it will essentially be a home crowd advantage, I guess, playing in Rupp. Now, Louisville, historically, not the best playing in Rupp Arena, but that's when they're playing Kentucky. But they'll be playing Creighton. And again, I like Creighton. I've always enjoyed watching Creighton. We've talked a lot about Creighton in the past. And it's a bummer that this is the draw they get because I think Louisville's hot right now. And I think Chucky Hepburn is going to kind of lead the charge there. So I'm with you as well. I got the Cardinals advancing here in the 8-9 game.
Love that. And I was back and forth on this one too. Like you said, I mean, I like Creighton's program in general. They still have, Kalkbrenner, who feels like he's been there forever now.
Forever. Yeah.
And then they still have Ashworth and a couple other decent guys. But I think the big thing is Rain Smith for Louisville, who is just this white lefty guard, absolute sniper. He's been out, I think, almost a month.
Us.
Yeah, he's very good. And they're saying he's supposed to be back. So if that's the case, I think it's a good matchup for Louisville, just because I don't know who they're going to have to guard Kalkbrenner. So I think they're really going to try and make it an up and down game. And if they have shooters, they already have Terrence Edwards, who was a James Madison transfer and played well in the tournament last year. And then you have Chucky at the helm. I just like their backcourt a lot more than Creighton's in this matchup. But again, if the injuries go the other way, I could see Kalkbrenner dropping 40 and they advance here as well. Very interesting first game. Should kick off the tournament in a hell of a fashion. Shut up, Purdue is actually the second game, which we'll get to, but there's always an upset early.
Are they really?
Yeah, they are number 2 on the docket. So there's no game in front of them for a possible upset even earlier, which makes me nervous. Anyways, love that we agree on the first one. We can keep on kicking it to the 7-10 matchup here in the South, which, again, I might say this like 10 times, but this might be my favorite matchup of the whole tournament. It is 7-seeded Marquette Golden Eagles versus the 10-seeded New Mexico Lobos, which, if you listened to our episode last year as well, Carter, we were both very high in the Lobos. What are your thoughts on them this year?
I feel like a broken record because I like them again. I think they're a great program this year. This game is just going to be the battle of the guards. It's going to be an awesome matchup between these two starting guards. And this is honestly, it's a really difficult game, but it's an easy pick for me because I like Richard Pitino and I think Shaka Smart's a fraud. So it's an easy pick for me, and I'm rolling with the Lobos here. Although I know it's going to be a really good game. I know Marquette has kind of faded a little bit, but
for sure.
But Cam Jones is still a great player. But I don't know. There's something about those Lobos, and we loved them last year, and I don't know what it is. They've got that. They just got that. They got that aura to them. This is another one I'll probably get wrong, but I am rolling with New Mexico. I don't know. Are you repeating the sins of last year as well, or are you deciding to go Big East?
I am going to repeat it. I'm going to follow you here.
Let's go.
And pick the Lobos. It's kind of the thing too, where I've picked them a few years now,
Yeah.
I think I mentioned this in last year's episode, but like it was probably like 7 or 8 years ago now. I picked them to go to the Final Four when they were like a 3 seed and they lost in the first round. And then last year I picked them to go to the Final Four, and that didn't go too well, obviously. But I'm not picking them to go to the Final Four this year. I just like them in this game specifically.
Yeah.
Like you said, the guard matchup is the massive thing here. Cam Jones,
Yeah.
All-American stud, just demolished Purdue earlier this year. A lot of respect for that guy. But my boy Donovan Dent, he still hasn't made his mark to where people know his name yet. And I think that's going to change a lot this year. Honestly, maybe betting advice, take both of their points because they're probably both going to go crazy. But
this is
really
when we
cool
need
thing,
Aiden to tell us. Yeah.
True.
To tell us
Yeah.
the odds. He was always the best at that.
True. Also, yeah, I forgot off the top too. We are missing our reoccurring guest, Aiden Cotter. He has gone down sick, unfortunately. He was planning to come on. So if you're listening, Aiden, shout out, bud. Hopefully it is all out of your system for the tournament games. But we're thinking about you and we're missing your stats here for sure.
He will be filling out a medical waiver. He'll be back hopefully next year. We'll see if it goes through. So yeah, we'll see him next year.
Shout out Luke Goody. But I agree. I'm just a fan of Patino as well. I've been waiting for this team to break out because I feel like once that happens, I think he's going to level up and take over a bigger program as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's this year, but I would love to see it happen at some point. And New Mexico is interesting too because last year they were just like all offense, not a ton of defense. This year their defense is actually, I believe it was like top 30 ranking altogether. So Marquette's going to play physical, but if they can handle the pressure, it should be a good one regardless. So I love that we're on the exact same page here to start.
2 for 2.
It will not last that long.
No.
Well, let's keep chugging to the last good matchup here in the South region, which is going to be the 6th seed Ole Miss Rebels versus the winner of the game tonight, which is San Diego State and North Carolina. So like I think both of us said, probably going to be talking about San Diego State here. But for myself, I actually really love this Ole Miss team. 6th seed, I think, is almost a perfect spot for them, just because there's probably 4 or 5 teams much better than them in the SEC. But I think if you put Ole Miss in like the Big 10 or the Big 12, they would probably be in the top 3, top 4. One of my more underrated squads for a Power 5 conference. And it mostly revolves around Sean Padula, the main point guard. And then I like Jemai Brakefield off the bench a ton too. I believe maybe he wasn't 6th man of the year in the SEC, but he's an absolute dog in the post. And I feel like the team that people talk a lot this year is Maryland because their starters all average over 10 a game.
The Crab 5, baby.
Yeah, which they're awesome, and we'll talk about them. But Ole Miss has 6 guys averaging 10 points a game, which I thought is really cool statistically. So I'll pick them to go a little bit further, but should be a fun defensive matchup with San Diego State if they are the ones to prevail. If it's North Carolina, I mean, take the over. There's going to be a lot of points scored. But regardless, I like the Rebels against either one of these squads. What are your thoughts on Ole Miss?
This is where we're going to differ, just because. And now I may have rose-colored glasses here, because with the whole IU search and Chris Beard's name just gets thrown around and so I would love to see nothing more than them to fail just because of Chris Beard. Not the biggest fan. Here's what I'll say. If North Carolina wins tonight, I think Ole Miss beats him. But I agree with you. Sean Padula is a dog. That awesome buzzer beater a couple weeks ago was insane.
I think regardless of who Ole Miss plays, it should be a solid game any way you like it. We can keep kicking along here to some of the upset watches here in the South region. I don't even know if we can call this game an upset watch, but the first matchup we'll talk about is the 5-12, which the 5 seed is the Michigan Wolverines, fresh off winning the Big Ten tournament title. Shout out Danny Wolf. But they are facing up against UC San Diego, the Tritons, who I believe are the top-rated 12 seed. They did win their conference tournament. I'm going to hype these boys up, so I'll kick us off here. But
here we go.
I do think this UC San Diego team is one of my sleepers for sure to make a deep run. First off, their defense is actually really, really good. They're top 5 defensive efficiency rating in the country. And they also have a top 20 offense to go along with that. Obviously, stats in these smaller conferences don't weigh as much, I don't think, but still interesting. And then they have they have 3 guys, but my 2 favorite guys, first off, is Anawa Tate Jones.
I was wondering if you were going to pronounce the full name. Hell yeah.
Remember this guy's name. Anoa Tate Jones is going to be the next superstar. I think he's going to take Vlad Golden to the rack all night. He averages 20 a game. And then they also have another shooter whose name is Ty McGuy. Just this white guy who chucks threes like crazy. He averages about 16. So watch out for those boys. I think they'll make a lot of noise. The one downside with this matchup with Michigan is UC San Diego, like their tallest guy, Anawa is their center technically. He's only like 6'8". So you're going up against Danny Wolf, who's 7 foot, Vlad Golden, who's 7 foot and a little bit more. It's going to be tough. I think obviously they're going to have to force turnovers on Michigan's guards and really just try and run them out of the gym and chucking threes, which they definitely have the capability of. But I'm jacked for this matchup too. Are you high in the Tritons, or what's your thoughts?
So this one I thought about a lot because this is
Tough.
probably this is the sexiest 512, I think. And for that one, maybe there might be one other one that I kind of like a little. But for that reason, I'm going the other way. I'm going to stick with the Wolverines. I think once again, I think maybe a little underseeded. I don't know. Maybe I'd bump them up to a 4. Not sure. But they feel all right. But just won the Big Ten title. But to your point, UC San Diego, they like to force the turnovers, and Michigan turns the ball over a lot.
Yeah.
That's kind of their Achilles heel. So the only way for San Diego to stay in this is, to your point, make it an up and down game, speed it up, because I don't know how you're gonna. If I were Michigan, I just throw it in the post all night. But we will see. Again, you mentioned San Diego, all-time names team. They're gonna have those names that you're gonna remember for a while. Hopefully they pop off and move along, but I do have Michigan moving on in this first game. But this will be a fun game to watch. I feel like it'll be like a one team will get out ahead early, and then the other team will try to get over the hump, and we'll just never be able to do it. That's just kind of how it feels in my head. But and I gotta ride with Dusty May for a game. So
true. You guy,
there you go. Yeah,
I respect it. And I think that's an interesting concept too when picking a bracket of there's such bait upset picks. And it's so hard to identify which ones you should follow and which ones you should kind of go against the norm with those upset
happens
picks.
every year. Yeah,
it's
difficult.
Really messes with your head. And this one's even stranger, like you said, because they fit each other's weaknesses so perfectly. Of Michigan's so tall and these guys are so short, but Michigan turns it over so much and they create turnover so much. So it might be an ugly game to start. But like you said, I think whoever makes that first run actually has a good shot to go to the long haul. Quickly too, I do think the seeding on Michigan is way off. I mean, Purdue got a 4 seed. Michigan beat them twice this month, including in the Big Ten tournament. Wisconsin was a 4, and Michigan just beat them in the Big Ten championship final. So
I don't think they watch it. I don't think they care. The selection
they
committee. I don't think they care at all about the tourneys. So
I think that's a great point. Especially too, if your tournament ends on Selection Sunday, nobody from the committee gives any craps about that game.
No, they slotted that in days ago so they could, I'll go get ice cream or something. Yeah. So it's 100%. Whatever.
But I'm jacked for that game. Should be a ton of fun.
9 p.m.
I know.
That's going to be fire.
The late one. I believe that's a Thursday game as well. Going to be a fun, basically capper to the day, I think, with some electric stuff. But another one of my favorite matchups, the South, honestly, too. I don't think I said this off the bat, but it's stacked with a lot of my personal favorite teams. If some of these teams, like if Michigan was on a different side of the bracket, I'd probably be picking them pretty deep. And this game, the 4-13 game, which is the 4-seeded Texas A&M Aggies versus the 13-seeded Yale Bulldogs, who are, of course, the champions of the Ivy League facing off. I like both these teams a ton, but this one's tough. What do you think about this game?
For me, I know people, and maybe you, I'm not sure, are going to want to go Yale. I will not say this is the same Yale team as last year.
True. No Danny Wolf.
No Danny Wolf, who's in the pod. And I know that this is what the committee wants. They want that Michigan-Yale matchup. But this is not that same Yale team they beat Auburn last year. Is that who they took?
Correct.
And,
yeah.
And I believe Auburn was my pick to win it all last year. I'm not, spoiler alert, I'm not making that same mistake again this year. But I just feel like A&M is such a physical team. And I haven't watched a ton of Yale this year. I watched a little bit of the Ivy League championship, but I just feel like A&M's going to bully ball them a little. And so for that reason, I'm going with the Aggies. But now that I've said that, this is going to be the one that's the upset, and it's it's going to drive me crazy. So, but yeah, I rolled with the Aggies here. But I don't know. You're going Bulldogs?
I am going Bulldogs for sure. I'm doubling
Nice.
down early on the
Got to.
upsets.
Got to.
But yeah, I mean, this one's tough because, like you said, A&M just plays unbelievably physically. So
Mhm.
it's going to come down to how the game's refed. Depth for Yale is going to be big. Like their main guys are very good. You got John Polakidis, I believe is the correct pronunciation, but just a lefty sniper. Absolutely went off in the Ivy League championship game. And he was on the team last year when they beat Auburn, and he played very well.
True.
They also have this Nick Townsend guy who basically plays like Jokic, but I don't know how effective he'll be against A&M's bigs just because of the length they have.
Mhm.
And then lastly, too, they have Bezem Bang, which is another great name. All these
Great
mid
name.
majors just have amazing names. But point guard does it all, averages like 10, 5, and 5. It's going to come down to him, I think. If he can bring up the ball consistently, against this double teaming, pressing A&M all in your face, I like Yale's odds a ton. But if they can't handle that, it's probably going to be a blowout the other way. So I'm going to pick the Bulldogs here. But A&M, they're a Final Four caliber team. I mean, they just beat Auburn, a couple weeks ago, and that's not easy to do. So,
Oh yeah,
could go either way. Again, I wish Yale got a different draw so I could pick them somewhere else, but I'll still stick with them here. Not a big Buzz Williams guy either. Pick a real first name, bud. But anyways, that covers the majority of the good matchups in this region. I'll run through the 1, 2, and 3 games here quickly. We got the 3-seeded Iowa State versus Lipscomb, Michigan State, the 2 seed versus Bryant, and then Auburn, the number 1 overall seed, playing a play-in team who's playing right now, who we don't know. But we'll talk about these teams more, I'm sure, as we talk about our overall predictions here in a sec. But
Sure.
any sleeper upsets here that you want to talk about?
Not for me. I think if you were to pick one, it's in another region. But
Yeah.
no, nothing for me. As long as Chad Baker Mazzara doesn't like fight anyone, I think that they'll be okay.
True.
In this first
Good
game.
point.
But that's always a possibility. So no, I like Sparty right now. I think if Iowa State's healthy, I know they have some questions there, that they should get past Lipscomb, no problem.
I agree. Nothing major here I want to point out. I mean, Michigan State in the past has lost to a 15 seed, so Izzo's been there. But
True.
I don't see it this year. I like Sparty a lot too. These are just like 3 solid teams that I would be surprised to see lose.
Mhm.
But beautiful. So that's all the first round games. Obviously, we'll just jump into what we think is going to happen deeper into the tournament. And to kick that off, I just want to talk about like each of our sleepers. My first sleeper that we talked about a little bit, I like Ole Miss a lot here. So I've been winning the first round game, and then second round they would be matched up against Iowa State, which, like you said, I mean every team's going through injuries, but I believe Keyshawn Gilbert, who's their number 2 guard, has just been ruled out for the tournament. So kind of a brutal loss. I think they were waiting until the seeding came out as well, just so it wouldn't affect their seeding, which is smart from TJ Otzelberger, which I do like a lot, but I just don't know if they have the depth to make a deep run. So I got the Rebels making the Sweet 16, and then my other sleeper, it's going to be UC San Diego. I also have them, well, obviously, with that double upset I'm going. Yale and UC San Diego would be matching up in the second round, but I like the Tritons to keep on going to play Auburn in the Sweet 16. So those are my 2. I'm kind of going out on a limb. We'll see if anything comes out of that. But did you have any big sleepers for this region?
Um, Not a ton that I picked, but I just want to put on the radar that Louisville could pull it off against Auburn to get to the Sweet 16
That'd be
if they
awesome.
keep that chip on their shoulder. I guess you could say my sleeper in this region is Michigan.
Nice.
So I do have Michigan making it to the Elite Eight for a spoiler alert, Sparty Wolverine rematch
Ooh.
in the Elite Eight. So I think that could be a lot of fun. To your point, Iowa State injury, you got the injury there. That's a big loss for them. So I do have Sparty getting past them, and then having those 2 a nice Big Ten rematch in the Elite Eight. So I guess that's kind of out on a limb to put the Wolverines out there.
Yeah.
So that's really all I got. I didn't pick as many upsets in this region as you went for, other than the 11 seed over Ole Miss. So
Yeah.
we differ a lot here. So this will be a fun region to track for sure.
Yeah. I love that. I never even considered like that Michigan State matchup just because I was so laser focused on the Tritons, I think. But that would be such a fun Elite Eight game. And
Yeah.
I mean, Dusty May's been great. He really has done nothing wrong so far. But I wouldn't mind seeing him lose first round, obviously. But if we,
And you know what? It might happen now that have propped it up
true,
like that. And maybe, Dusty has learned now not to disrespect the Sparty logo at half court now. So maybe he's learned his
true.
lesson there. And we'll take that and fire it up. So yeah, that's my Elite Eight matchup there.
That'd be great beef resolution for sure for that senior night moment.
Full circle.
You like Michigan over Auburn too, which is interesting.
Yeah, I do. I don't know. There's something about, see, I loved Auburn last year. They slighted me. I still love Auburn. I like everything they got going on. I like Joni Broom. I like Bruce Pearl a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like they're starting to get on my nerves though, a little bit. I don't know what it is. There's something, I don't know. It's an intangible thing to describe, but I think they're a little Icarus right now, perhaps. So that's the only reason I decided to pick Michigan to go past Auburn. But that'll be a great game if that occurs.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
That'd be a great matchup with the big guys for sure.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think Auburn a little bit unlikable. They're just a little bit too cocky for my liking, even though they are that good. So
Yeah.
I'll root against them probably most tournament. But in my Elite Eight, fairly similar. I also had Michigan State, who I think is prime for a deep run. And then I did have them facing Auburn in the Elite Eight, which again would just be a great coaching matchup more than anything else. I think this Izzo team is kind of like a team of destiny, excuse me, in my eyes.
There's something about them. Yeah.
It's crazy. Like they don't have any stars. They have 10 solid dudes who all play defense. They all share the ball. Some of them can shoot it, some of them not so much. And then you have the craziness of they've won all of these games in the Big Ten that they probably shouldn't have won. They beat Maryland at the buzzer on a half-court heave from Trey Holloman, which is iconic. Jace Richardson has really come out of his shell. Cohen Carr, I mean, oh my goodness. Just a human highlight reel. One of my favorite players to watch, even though he is a Spartan. Crazy hops. But I'm going to pick them to go to the Final Four. I think Sparty, this is the year. Which for this region, I think they got a bad draw with Auburn, if I'm being honest. It kind of reminds me of like the Zion Duke team, where everybody just thought like they had a clear shot to the Final Four, similar with Auburn this year, just because they are so good. But when you face Tom Izzo in the Elite Eight, it's not that easy. So I kind of just want to see that matchup. I think it's similar with you, obviously wanting to see like the Michigan State matchup. But did you have Michigan State in the Final Four as well?
I did. You and I align here
Love
with
that.
all of the with all the chaos that we've bred this region. We all ended up in the right place. I agree with you totally. I think Sparty is a team of destiny. I have no idea how Indiana beat them in East Lansing. So,
Sure.
but yeah, it's just a team that just somehow finds a way always. So I think they'll play team basketball as opposed to some of these other teams that I think are just a few stars basketball. So yeah, I do have them advancing to the Final Four in the South.
Love that. Well, we're pretty aligned on this region, which we'll see if that continues on. And lastly, for each region too, I should have mentioned this off the bat, so this is obviously a fan favorite, but we're going to be handing out more hoopies today. That's what the people want. We're going to give it to them.
Absolutely.
So we're doing our classic hoopie, which is our player of the region. But I also want to throw in an underrated player who could break out. Looking back to last year's tournament, think of DJ Burns, think of Jack Golke, kind of those under the radar figures we just want to hand out more hoopies, if we're being honest. But we'll kick it off with you, Carter. Who is your player of the region hoopie?
My player of the region hoopie is going to be Danny Wolf.
Love that.
I think and maybe you'll see the Big Ten bias here because obviously I watched more of them this year.
Yeah.
So I know him a little more. And, maybe he gets overshadowed by Vlad Golden in some instances as well. But I think he'll have a great showing. I think he's been there. Dusty has also been there. And I think that they are well coached and he will be a star. So I think if he's going to earn my hoopie, he's got to beat Auburn. So, but I guess first we got to get past San Diego. We can't look ahead. So that's going to be my player of the region hoopie. There. So what about you? Who is yours?
It's a great pick off the bat. I love Danny Wolf, if I'm being completely honest. His play style reminds me a bit of my own, not to toot my own too much. But Take his
Love it.
assists a lot. When Vlad Golden has a good game, Danny Wolf has like 10 assists. So
Mhm.
big ups to that guy. But my
Yep.
player of the region, I'm gonna go. I mean, come on, Janai Broom. He's the
There you
player
go.
of the year. He's
Yep.
insane. He's got that nice lefty post up game. Uses the backboard well. Can also shoot it. Also, just a really, really good defender on the interior. Has led this Auburn team to probably the most impressive resume from like quad win standard, like quad one win standard, like we were talking about earlier. And even though they've been, struggling a little bit, I think they've lost like 3 out of the last 5 or something. I think they put it together and make a good run here. But I mean, he's the player of the year, so it's hard for me not to pick him when I have them in the Elite Eight.
Yep.
And it's similar, I think, too, where it's hard to pick anybody from Michigan State because they don't have any, player of the region-esque kind of players. So
Yeah.
I think it makes sense both ways. And I'll kick it off with my underrated player who's going to break out. I already talked about him. It's Ottawa Tate Jones. I'm just going to make an excuse to say that name as many times on this podcast because
Got to.
Ottawa is a baller. And I think everybody, including you guys listening, are going to know his name here pretty shortly. So that's going to be my pick, even though maybe it's a little bit, obvious.
I wanted to give it to somebody who I think was actually going to go far as well, not just a flash in the pan per se. But we kind of talked about him already too. I'm going Jace Richardson just because I want to
Nice.
just give him some love because I don't think he's started a game until sometime in February. Like he's really come on towards the end of the year. And I just love watching him play. Son of Jason Richardson. So shout out a Nepo hire, if you will. But I mean, I haven't seen him make very many mistakes. He's a freshman and I think he's going to maybe make a name for himself and stick around maybe another year, come back to Sparty and we'll see. So yeah, I'm going to give it to him and hope that he has a nice, kind of breakout tourney to really cement himself as a star on a team where he's kind of a rising star right now.
I think that's a great pick. Yeah, Jace, very good shooter. Another lefty. I love the amount of lefties we have in the tournament this year. And another very good freshman. I think there's a ton of great freshmen, which maybe
Great
he gets
class.
kind of lost underneath that a little bit. But yeah, I think if they do go to the Final Four, he would be my pick for kind of their most valuable player. So I think that's a very good under the radar pick for sure.
Oh yeah.
So that is our South region. Kicking through it pretty quick, which is beautiful. And we can just keep moving along here, knocking out region by region. The second one that we'll dive into will be the East region. And starting off with the best matchups here, I'll say off the bat too, I think this is maybe even a more chaotic region for me. So we're starting off with the crazy ones, which I love. But the 8-9 game in the East, it is the 8-seeded Mississippi State Bulldogs of the SEC versus the 9-seeded Baylor Bears. Shout out Scott Drew. I think this will be a fun game. I am definitely leaning more towards the Mississippi State side of things, just because Baylor has been a bit disappointing this year. But do you concur? What do you think?
I went back and forth on this one as well, but I ended up going with the Jeremy Roach Duke revenge narrative. So I decided to roll with the Baylor Bears. To your point, I haven't loved Baylor this year, but I like Scott Drew a little more. So I always kind of lean towards the coach. So yeah, I think Jeremy Roach is going to try to go nuclear in this game to prove a point. And then I think he might I have a feeling he'll come out flat against Duke. I don't know. It just feels like feels like how it'll go. So for that reason, I just gave the slight edge to Baylor in that regard. And usually all my narratives are bullshit and never pan out. But, right now it sounds great.
You got to hope for something. Yeah. I respect it.
So,
and I like the mindset too of, if you're not sure, just go with the better coach, which I think that is undoubtedly Scott Drew. Yeah. So they have a good team. VJ Edgecombe, another freshman, crazy athletic. I like watching him play a lot. But I'm kind of a hater of Roach. I'll call him out. I don't think he's that good. So I do have Mississippi State here. Their team's really fun. It's basically everybody from last year. Josh Hubbard, just a little guy bombing threes. I really enjoy watching. Cam Matthews, just a freak of nature all over the place. Yeah, my X factor is Riley Kugel, who is transferred from Florida from last year. Usually comes off the bench, another really good shooter. I don't know. I like the Bulldogs here. Maybe in the next game too. We'll see. But another toss-up. This one could go either way for sure. But sweet. And then the 7-10 game in this region. Another really interesting matchup, I think, is Vanderbilt versus St. Mary's, SEC versus West Coast Conference regular season champs here. This one's hard because they're such different teams, I feel like. Vandy, it's mostly
Very
a
much.
transfer team. You have AJ Hogarth at the helm, who was a Michigan State guy. You also have Jason Edwards, who's an underrated guard. And then I have a couple good big guys, a couple shooters around. So just a fun construction with a lot of transfers versus St. Mary's. I mean, they were really good in the West Coast Conference this year. I didn't watch much of it, if I'm being honest. And Gonzaga kind of had a bit of a down year, even though they won the West Coast Conference tournament. On paper, St. Mary's should win this game, I think. But I just like the hard-nosed SEC kind of transfer squad from Vandy. So I'm going to ride with, what are they, the Commodores? Something stupid like that. I'm riding with Vandy.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Something with a C.
Yeah, I
Who cares?
wonder. I don't know the stat off the top of my head, but is this the first time in however many years that St. Mary's is seated higher than Gonzaga? Like, when's the last time that happened? I don't know.
Good question.
So yeah, definitely a down year for the Zags. To your point, very different teams. Vanderbilt, you could say, is having kind of a miracle season, per se. Like, they've had pulled off some crazy wins in some pretty miraculous fashion. I feel like it ends very lackluster here, and the St. Mary's team just kind of finds a way. I've seen St. Mary's in the past hand it to teams like the Indiana Hoosiers.
True.
So I've still got a bad taste in my mouth from that. So yeah,
but you respect them, yeah.
but I respect them. They play really. To your point, very different teams. But I'm going to give St. Mary's the slight edge here in what might be a really popular 7-10 upset. I would imagine. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't know the most popular, but yeah, I wouldn't blame you for going with the Commodores.
Yeah. Another tough one, honestly. Coin flip for me. The 7-10s are brutal. I mean, the
Yeah.
New Mexico Marquette, I feel very similar about this game. So
Mhm.
we'll see, but it should be entertaining nonetheless, which is what we're here for. And then we can move on to the last good matchup here, the 6-11, which we have the 6-seeded BYU Cougars facing off against the A10 champs, regular season and tournament, which never happens in the A10. That would be the VCU Rams. This one, actually, I've switched back and forth on a few times. But you can kick us off. What are your thoughts on this game?
Maybe similar, just in regards to St. Mary's Vanderbilt being so different. This is offense juggernaut versus defense juggernaut, I think. VCU plays great defense. BYU, when they get hot, shoot the ball lights out. So it's either going to be, and I don't know. VCU can also score the ball. BYU doesn't have the best defense. So I think it could be, I don't know. It could be a very lopsided game either way, but I'm giving the slight edge to the Cougars. And I couldn't tell you why. I just, it's one of those ones where you sit there and think about it and you're like, I could do an upset here. But would that just be because I want an upset? And so then I picked BYU and it just made me kind of, I don't know, team of destiny Cougars for me for some reason. I don't know. It's the one I've held on to, which we'll talk about, going later into the bracket in this region. But that's the one I decided to hold on to here. And I was like, I'm going to take you this far, and then I'll have my hopes crushed in the first round because the Rams will come out and just ram it down our throats somehow. But anyway, I went with the Cougars despite all of that. So
I love it. And I agree too. Like, I think whoever comes out of this game actually has a really good chance to win a couple after that. I think both of these are really fun teams, and they fit this region perfectly. I think this region specifically is offense, offense, offense. I mean, we'll talk about Wisconsin, Bama. Duke has good defense, to be fair, but like you said, BYU, they're one of my favorite teams to watch offensively. That game they had against Iowa State in the Big 12 tournament, I mean, it was like 195. Like, I live for those kind of games in college basketball. So I originally had them like moving on to the Elite Eight, but the more I looked into VCU, I'm not a big A10 guy. That is our resident expert, Aiden. So if Aiden's yelling at us right now, let us know.
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about really, but like you said, VCU top 5 defense. So supposedly very good there, but they evidently have a pretty good offense as well. This guy, Max Scholga, is a sniper who I was watching the A10 game. I feel like he's been there a few years now. So if they can shoot it with BYU, I did take VCU to win this game. But
if they can outshoot them, absolutely.
Yeah, but that's a big if against the Cougars. So again, could go either way. I favor the Rams just because I think maybe defense will win out, which will be a theme of my bracket, which will probably be very wrong. But I'm going with defense here. But yeah, really could go either way. And similar to you too, I picked mostly 6 seeds, I think. So going for 11 here was deferring and just trying to make it a little bit evened out with these close matchup games.
Sure.
Sweet. Well, awesome. Well, the good games out of the way. We'll go to upset watch here in the East region, and a decently interesting 5-12 game, I think. We have the Oregon Ducks, who proceeded pretty highly for being like the 8 seed in the Big Ten at a 5, playing the Liberty Flames, who are the 12 seed. They've been in the tournament, obviously, multiple times in the past. I think they won a game about 2 or 3 years ago. That was very entertaining. I am going to lean the Ducks for this region, and it's mostly because I like them to make a pretty decent run past this. And out of the 12 seeds as well, I think Liberty probably is the weakest out of all the ones that we'll talk about. So Nate Biddle, just a massive guy, hard to score against. And Jackson Shelstad, just he can shoot it from anywhere. Crazy clutch. He had an insane shot against IU this year, which I know you remember. Yeah, give me the Ducks.
Yeah, I mean, to all your points, I don't have to belabor it. I don't love this Liberty team. I think this Oregon team is, I don't want to say overseeded, but definitely an interesting placement. I like Dana Altman in March. I think he's a sleepy March coach, like that people don't really give him the credit that is due maybe when he gets to March. I think he knows how to win, at least in the first round. This will be a 3-point game, I think. I think they're going to rein in as well. So yeah, I'm also going the Ducks. I'm not going the upset here.
Which is hard on these 12 seeds not to take that bait, but I agree. Dana Altman.
I know.
So good in March. I think there was a stat where Oregon has the most wins in March over the past decade, which is pretty crazy. So shout out to Dana. But awesome. Moving on to the 4-13 matchup, which is actually a really good one. The 4-seeded Arizona Wildcats facing off against the MAC champs, the Akron Zips, who have been due for a tournament appearance for a little bit and also due for a tournament win. Carter, do we like the Zips here? What are we thinking?
The final score of this game might be like 98-94. Like these two teams. This is one that because I have been, so my buddies are coming into Chicago for this opening weekend. We're going to watch these games, and we're going to a DraftKings bar, and we're going to lay down a bunch of crazy parlays and all this stuff. So I have been tentatively looking at some lines. Last time I checked, the over for this game is 167.5. Wow. So I think these teams are going to shoot the lights out of this thing. So the only problem is I would like the upset here. The only problem is Akron's just really small compared to this Arizona team. So, I mean, you could argue that in their favor, that they're maybe a little quicker, but I feel like even if they speed it up, I just feel like they're not going to be able to stop them in the post. Even if they are their only hope is to just get them to keep just shooting the ball. Maybe like Indiana, just like we love long twos. But so yeah, I would, as much as I would love to pick this upset, I am going Arizona here. Yeah. But it should be a fun, high scoring game.
I agree on all accounts. Hopefully a really good game, but I am going to go with Arizona here with my pick as well. They've looked good recently. Obviously made the Big 12 championship game. And shockingly, I think Caleb Love may be back, which I didn't think I would ever say on this podcast, especially if you heard our last couple of years. But he just hasn't been chucking threes like crazy. He's kind of gone back to his freshman year at Carolina where he just plays within the offense. He still shoots a lot because he gets open looks in Arizona's offense, which is very good. But he doesn't force it as much. So I like that a lot. And exactly what you said, too. I think just the size and length of Zona is going to be a problem inside. From my understanding, I haven't watched a ton of Akron games, but one of their biggest strengths is their interior offense. They can definitely shoot it pretty well, but they just dominate it inside. But I'm not sure they're going to be able to do that against the 7-footers of Arizona. So that would be the key thing. I think foul trouble for Zona's big guys could help them out, but should be a close game. I think taking Akron's cover here and the over would be a good hit. And Caleb Love point, throw that in.
Sure.
But awesome. And then the last couple matchups here, the higher seeded teams. I mentioned Wisconsin is the 3 seed. They're facing off against Montana, who I saw a stat where they've actually been the luckiest team in the field. So shout out Montana. Your luck's running out. And then we have the 2 seeded Alabama, who another insane year. Obviously made it to the Final Four last year. They're facing off against Robert Morris. Then the one-seeded Duke Blue Devils are going to play the play-in team who play tomorrow. Any upset watches here for you with these three?
I guess I'll see how the American Mount St. Mary's game pans out. But no, I think Duke is also not a team of destiny, but I think they're probably the favorite in many people's brackets, especially when
For sure.
I don't think they're going to play Cooper Flagg in this first game. I think just as a precaution, I think he's fine, but I think they're like thinking we don't need to, play him this game. I think that there might be some of that. So maybe it's a trap game. Not sure, but I think they'll be okay. I think Wisconsin will be okay. They've looked really good lately. And I think Bama will also fare pretty well. They brought back almost everybody, Bama did. So you could see a repeat here. So, yeah, I think the top three are okay in my eyes in the first round.
I agree. I mean, I would love to see Duke lose in the first round, but
Oh, it'd be great.
I don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately. Cooper Flagg's availability is going to be a massive theme for me as well in this. It'll be interesting. I do agree. I don't know why they would play him in the 16 seed game. Maybe play him to start off and then sit him the rest of the game. But yeah, obviously his healthiness is going to be the kind of the difference maker for the Devils in this tournament.
For sure.
And we can jump into our deeper thoughts on this region. So just talking about sleeper wise, did you have any sleepers you wanted to shout out?
Yeah, my sleeper here is the BYU Cougars. I've got them in the Sweet 16. I've got them getting past Wisconsin. I just think if they get hot and they start shooting, that they could do it. And I know Wisconsin has also been hot lately. Tanji has been a beast. So we will see. But I think that's kind of my putting all my chips in on the Mormons this year. And I'm going to have them go to the Sweet 16. And I also do have Oregon getting past Arizona,
Nice.
which I think is a fun one. I'd like to see Biddle just go to work inside. The people are calling him the mechanic now, I guess. Love that for him. So I guess those are my big sleepers. I don't have any big, I guess I don't have a ton of larger seeds really, at least in these first two. I think it's I mean, we didn't even really, I guess, mention, but more so than any this year, this felt really top heavy. In the top seeds just feel really, really good. Usually I can find a weakness in there that I'm like, yes, but it's a little difficult for me this year for some reason. So
Yeah.
those would be my big stretches in this region.
I like both of those. And like you said, I think that plays a lot into the transfer portal too. If everybody's so spread out, it is
Yeah.
pretty even. But like the top, I think the three seeds up are all just very, very good, where they don't have a ton of flaws that you can see in their games. So it's hard to pick against them, especially early. But for me, I'm going to go against everything I said there. I'm taking Duke to lose in the second round. Give me the Mississippi State Bulldogs.
Let's go.
We haven't had like an 8-9 take down a 1 for a little bit. I think it has been since that Carolina run to the Final Four, which is
Yeah.
Caleb Love, RJ Davis, very, very long time ago in my head.
Was Kansas, Arkansas, was that same year? I can't remember when that was, when Musselman
think
took
so.
his shirt off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Must Buzz going
Must Buzz.
crazy, iconic. Hasn't been back to the tournament since, I don't think. But
Tough.
shout out to him. But, the Bulldogs, I think, again, if Cooper Flagg is 100% healthy, I don't think this happens. But I think he will play in this game regardless. But I just like the size matchup. The other big thing with Duke is they're so hard to match up with because they have Malawach, the big boy in the middle, just massive guy. He can post anybody up. But Mississippi State has kind of the big guys to combat that. I mentioned Cam Jones. He's not even their center, and he's like 6'10". So they can pound down low, and it's going to come down to the guard play, obviously, at that point. And if Flagg's not 100%, I'm going to pick against them. So give me Mississippi State to advance to the Sweet 16. I do have them losing right after that to the Oregon Ducks, though. I agree with you as well, where
Nice.
I got Oregon in my Elite Eight. I almost
Love
took
it.
them to go to the Final Four, honestly. Shout out Dana.
Happened
Maybe
a couple
this-
years ago, right?
Yeah.
Not too long
Yeah.
ago.
And Dana is the man who can take them there again, and they have a hell of a team. So I like their guards even more than their bigs, if I'm being honest. Bartholomew, underrated as hell, very good shooter. But other than that, too, on the other side, I mean, it's really tough. Obviously, I took VCU. I do agree if BYU gets to that game versus Wisconsin, I like BYU. But if it is VCU there, I'm going to take Wisconsin to beat them. And then in the bottom half, I like Bama to roll all the way to the Final Four here. Like you
Nice.
said,
Nice.
everybody back from last year. I'm a big Grant Nelson guy. He hasn't really been playing up to standard. I think he's averaging under 10 a game during the regular season. But he
Was there
looks
something
really,
about his health too? Like, was he? I thought I read something just recently,
I
but
think
it
so.
was
And that would
maybe the
explain kind
first
of,
game.
yeah, the season he's been having as well. But if he's healthy, they still obviously have Mark Sears at the helm. Nate
Yeah.
Oates is a very good coach and just shooters everywhere. So I
Mhm.
think they'll be fun to watch. And yeah, I had them and Oregon in the Elite Eight, and then I had the Tide going back to the Final Four, which I think would be fun too. We haven't
Nice.
had a back-to-back Final Four team for a while, so I want to see that storyline.
Nice.
Who was your Final Four pick here? Is it the Cougars?
No, mine's a little boring. It ends up
That was
just
Dookie.
it ends up getting down to Duke and Bama. For me, I guess for just all the opposite reasons that you're saying for Duke. I'm just going for the Cooper Flag experience, I suppose. Um, that is me assuming that he's healthy, and
Right.
yours is assuming he's not. So it's
Yeah.
gonna be a hit or
A lot of
miss
assumptions.
yeah. So it's great. So, and then I do have Bama playing BYU, but I do have them rolling past the Cougars, and then I do have Duke going to my Final Four in this one. So
Good pick.
we'll see with this one. Yeah.
Shout out Mason Gillis, glue guy.
Shout out.
Hope he has a good tournament. And but yeah, that bottom half, like I said, offense, you got Bama, you got BYU, you got Wisconsin. I want to see all of those teams play just because I think it's going to be like 110 to 100 with all of those specific matchups. So
Mhm.
should be a really, really fun region. And of course, to cap it off, let's hand out some hoopies. I'll start off. My player of the region, it's going to be my boy, Mark Sears. He was preseason All-American. He did make the All-American first team. Definitely struggled in the non-conference, I would say. But went back to kind of his past first mentality, and that just opens up his jumper altogether. So another lefty. I'm a big lefty guy. But shout out Mark. I hope he has a good run here. Who's your first hoopy going to be in the East?
You might think I'm going Cooper Flag, but I'm not. I'm going same way you were. I love watching Mark Sears play. I think he can have another great run this year. And I guess same for me too. We're just going rolling with the lefties. So I just feel like Cooper Flag, if it happens, it's going to be more of a role, maybe a little bit of a role player in this tourney. I think he might find a spot, but maybe not be the star. But who does?
He'll get a lot of attention, whether he's healthy or not. So
For sure.
I think that's a good call. And yeah, shout out Mark Sears if you're listening. You're our first double hoopy winner of 2025. So massive award to you. And Carter, who's your underrated hoopy going to go to in this region?
Richie Saunders, baby.
Yes.
BYU, baby. You gotta love him. He's
Sniper.
exactly who you want. Deadly shooter, quick trigger, pulls up from ridiculous range too. He's all ready to go in the NBA. He's shooting like, I don't know, 40 something, 45% from three or something crazy like that. And his great grandpa allegedly invented tater tots. So how can you not roll with this guy when that news line came out a couple weeks ago? So, I think he's going to write his own legacy. Not going to be his grandpa. Not going to be known as the tater tot kid. Going to be known as the sharp shooting cougar, baby. So I'm going Richie Saunders.
It's a great pick. Will he be bigger than tater tots? I think that's the question.
Time will tell.
It's a great pick, and yeah, one of the best shooters in the whole tournament. So I back it. My underrated player, I'm going to go with Max Shulga, who I mentioned earlier. VCU,
Nice.
very similar, honestly, to Richie. Both just lights out shooters. It's kind of the Jack Golke pick, where if somebody gets hot like that, they can drop 30 points, in half. So excited to see those kind of players, and hopefully they both go crazy because I'm here for it.
Wow. Tune in on Thursday at 3:05 p.m. to watch two hoopy winners go to battle.
Head to head. They better guard each other, or I'm gonna be disappointed. The real hoopy winner is the winner of that game. So you're playing for even more, guys. Keep that in mind. Awesome. Well, that wraps up the East region. We are officially halfway home.
Thanks for listening to the episode. You can follow the rest of our happenings over here at Kody and Corbin Have a Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at KHAP Podcasts, KHAPODCAST. Please follow us on Spotify, give us a rating, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow along for more.
And we will keep moving on to the Midwest here. I kind of lied. This region, I have a lot of KSs all year, but the early matchups I think are really really fun and tight as well. So jumping straight to that 8-9 game, we have the 8 seeded Gonzaga Bulldogs. Like we said, coming off a little bit of a down year, but still won the West Coast Conference tournament. Still a pretty respectable seed at the 8 line, and then they're playing another SEC team, the Georgia Bulldogs, who have not been in the tournament for a few years but have a solid team. Have a really good freshman in Asa Newell, who's probably going to be a lottery pick, and then some scrubs surrounding him. But I'm probably going to go with the Zags here. If Mark Few is sober, I think they should win this game by a lot.
Just don't let him drive to the game. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big if. But yeah, I mean, Andrew Nemhard, I'm a big fan of. Graham Ike is still in college somehow. So they have the experience. Georgia, like I said, hasn't been in the tournament for a few years. Other than Ace and Newell, I don't really love their roster, but they deserve to get in. They had some good wins. What are you thinking here, though?
Yeah, I'm not differing from Mark Few. You can't argue that 9 straight Sweet 16 stat. So to get there, you got to get past the first game. So I can't argue with you. I can't go against the Zags. I've gone against them before in deeper games, but I will not go against them in the first round. It's Gonzaga. So Georgia, happy to be here. I think on the lower end of that stacked SEC roster. So yeah, I'm going the Zags.
I agree. Honestly, I think you could have swapped, Vanderbilt and Georgia kind of in the seeding. 9 does feel a little bit high for them because they were on the bubble, I feel like, for most of the year. But yeah, that might be our lock of the day, honestly. We haven't agreed on anything that much for a wild card, so
boom.
Book Georgia to win that game because we called it a lock. But moving on to the 7-10 matchup, which I think compared to our other 7-10s is not as tough as the other ones we've talked about. It is the 7-seeded UCLA Bruins matching up against another Mountain West team, the Utah State Aggies, who I believe I talked fairly highly up last year and disappointed me a bit. But what are your thoughts on this matchup?
I think Mick Cronin called his players ass earlier in the year. He called them out, lit a fire under them, and it worked for a little bit. They've kind of been, up and down all year. Not a great showing in the Big Ten tournament. They got waxed. But despite that, I still like them more than Utah State. So I'm going the Bruins here. But not for long. I think I'm just Mick Cronin just is such a stinker is how I describe him as a coach. So I'll go with him over Utah State. But Utah State, great year. I picked too many Mountain West teams, and I can't pick another. I just can't. So I'll lean towards the Big Ten. I went the Bruins.
I like that a lot. Yeah, I agree too. I did pick a couple Mountain West teams. Another one that we'll talk about here soon. But picking them, I mean, if you pick all of them, a couple of them are probably going to hit. To be fair, and
that's good odds.
True. And Utah State, I mean, I was looking up statistically, they shoot the 3 ball very, very well. I think they had 2 or 3 guys who were over like 42% from downtown. So good offensive team, but I think it's a bad matchup just because, like you said, UCLA, that gritty Mick Cronin defense is kind of what they're known for. And they have big bodies inside, which Utah State did not look like they could really compare to. So it's going to be the inside versus the outside kind of game. And from my experience, I usually see mid-majors who can shoot a lot. Sometimes you just struggle against the pressure. So I'll take Mick here. Spoiler, I do kind of like UCLA moving forward in this. We'll see how far, but should be a fun first game regardless. Beautiful. And then our last good matchup here in the Midwest is going to be the 6-seeded Illinois Fighting Illini, which is a fun rating for them. And then playing the winner of the Texas Xavier play-in game. Another tough one. I mean, all 3 of these teams, honestly, good teams. Who are you liking here?
This one is so hard.
Yeah.
This one's a coin flip, and I might change this after we record this. But I went with Illinois. Illinois got pretty fucked up in the Big Ten tournament as well.
Oh, yeah.
For a while there, I thought they had righted the ship. They won a bunch of games in a row, really good games to kind of end the year. They've got some great lottery picks in there as well. I feel like they're maybe starting to figure out how to piece them together. So yeah, I'm just gonna go with Brad Underwood here. I guess when in doubt, I favored the Big Ten team. I guess I don't know. This one's gonna sting because either I could see Sean Miller coming in here and messing them up, and I could see Rodney Terry coming in and messing them up. So I know you're picked the 11 seed here, right? So you're going Xavier, or you like Texas more?
I do like the Longhorns here. And I think that strategy, though, especially in the first round of picking the Big Ten, will probably be successful. Past that, it's hard to predict, but I think
Yeah.
most their first round matchups, it's safer to take them than go the other way. But now saying that, like I said, I'm going to take Texas here. Hopefully
Good
they can
call.
beat Xavier. I mean, Xavier's a tough matchup for them. Shout out Ryan Conwell, who's an Indiana State transfer I really like. But I kind of said this with the first four too, but Texas is just finally healthy. Tremont Mark, who's a Houston transfer, very good point guard, very good shooter. I like him a lot. They also have Trey Johnson, who's one of the top freshmen, just a pure scorer. He really does remind me of kind of a Kevin Durant type. But he's wearing a Texas jersey, so that's probably why. And then Kendall Weaver, Arthur Kaluma, Caden Shedrick, like all decent transfers that they got in the offseason. And they're finally all put together. Again, I don't know if they can stay healthy. That is kind of the big factor here. But in this matchup with Illinois, I do think Illinois is kind of fraudulent. I don't think they should have been a 6 seed,
Fair.
but there's
Yeah.
there's a lot of Big Ten teams I don't think should have been as highly rated. Jaconis, I'm a hater. He doesn't do much. He can kind of shoot it. He can kind of pass it. Just kind of mid at everything. Will Riley, absolute dog. I think he 30-pieced Purdue when we visited Champaign. But yeah, I just don't like Brad Underwood. So that's mostly kind of
I don't either.
the personal pick here as well. But should be a great game. And I think I am honestly more excited for that Texas Xavier game versus kind of
that'd be
the
fun.
first round matchup.
Yeah.
So shout out to that. But awesome. We can go on to the upset watch here in the Midwest. In this first game, again, I've said it before, I think this is my favorite matchup. We got 5-seeded Clemson Tigers taking on the 12 seed Will Wade. Can he make his mark with McNeese in the tournament? Carter, are we taking the bait upset here? What are we thinking?
This is not the bait upset that I've taken. There's another, this one,
Respect.
I get it. Okay. Great coach. He said, I'm going to be here 2 years. I'm going to turn this program around. And now I don't know where he's going, if he's going to come back. A lot of people were saying this was a game to figure out who was going to be IU's coach. Also, that was in the tea leaves as well.
True.
Wouldn't want any of those guys. Yeah. But I don't know. McNeese, they haven't really, played many Power 5 teams other than, didn't they get smoked by Gonzaga earlier in the year? And Gonzaga's not even,
Not that
the
good.
Gonzaga that we know them to be. So this is a different McNeese team. Picked them last year. They crushed me. I'm not going to pick them again this year. So this is a new trend for me this year. I am not buying the upset bait this year. And that, you know what? That's going to bite me in the ass. But you know what? Right now, there's a few that I've picked, which I feel good about, but this is not the one. So I went with the Clemson Tigers here in an ACC that maybe feels slighted, and it doesn't feel that they have respect here. So Clemson, I think, is a totally fine team this year, but I think they're just like the unsung heroes in the ACC this year because they're overshadowed by Duke and Louisville maybe, but even though I think Clemson has been right up there, but just hasn't maybe gotten the attention that it maybe deserves. So I feel like they're a sleeper, perhaps, and I'm going to go with the Tigers.
I actually completely agree. I am taking Clemson here in this as well, which it's tough. Like you said, when there's such bait 12-5 matchups, and again, McNeese has kind of been this team for the last couple of years where everybody's kind of, leaning that way in the first round as an upset.
Yep.
And it's tough for Will Wade because I think when he came into this program, like you said, he was like, oh, we're going to make a run. I'm going to change things around. I don't know what he does if they lose in the first round again this year. Like, does he just go nowhere? It's kind of just embarrassing if that does happen, I feel like. But I'm here for it. I'm not a big Will Wade guy or a big Brad Brownell guy either, if I'm being honest. Mm-hmm. But Clemson has the experience. I mean, this team, very, very similar to last year's team who shocked me and made an Elite Eight run. I think I was really talking shit about them in our episode last year, but they went off. Chase Hunter, so clutch. You got the chef, just gets every rebound. They got this big Russian guy this year who just bombs threes. I think the key to this game, because obviously McNeese, they're going to get up and pressure you. Defense is their big thing. Clemson brought in another guard. This guy's name is Zachary. He doesn't look like a basketball player. He's like balding, kind of shorter. But if he plays well and can take care of the ball, I think they win this game. And I do like them to win a couple games after this as well. So
Mhm.
shout out Tigers. Honestly, like before the bracket was revealed, I was talking with one of my buddies being like, if you had to pick 4 teams before the bracket comes out to make the Final Four, who would you want, that to be? Clemson was one of my picks. I'm not going to take them to the Final Four, but I think they have that quality of team to watch out for. So
Yeah.
should be a fun one. Again, defense versus offense. Chase Hunter probably going to have a game winner. I'm pretty pumped for this one.
Nice.
And on that note, oh man, I don't want to talk about this game. The the 4-13 matchup here, we got the 4-seeded Purdue Boilermakers. Shout out Braden Smith, Big Ten Player of the Year.
Shout out.
Facing off against High Point, who is a high scoring, high shooting mid-major. I guess I'll kick it off with my little spiel here, but
Please.
I'm just nervous altogether. I mean, I believe Purdue has lost like 6 out of their last 9, something close to that, if not exactly to that. Fletcher Lawyer actually just had a really brutal injury in the Big Ten tournament where he like smacked his elbow on a camera guy, and it was all swelling up. So that's not great. We don't have any sort of interior defense this year. Obviously, Jacobson was our center, got hurt like game 2, and Trey Kaufman-Renn elite on the offensive end. I think Matt Painter has literally told him to not contest any shots in the paint just to keep him out of foul trouble because Will Berg is sitting behind him just waiting to come in. So if we get in any sort of foul trouble with First or Kaufman-Renn, I mean, this is massive trouble. If Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer do not hit like 5 3-balls each, we're in massive trouble. But I'm picking Purdue. I don't know much about High Point. I didn't care to research them because I don't want to see how good they are statistically against my favorite team. And this has been a very bait upset pick as well. What are your thoughts on High Point?
The very easy thing, an obvious thing to do for me was to pick High Point, but I'm not going to do that.
Wow. Okay. I'm shocked.
I'm not high on Purdue this year. I think, yes, they went to the championship game last year. Zach Edey's not here. Braden Smith's been a monster this year. Fletcher Lawyer has been streaky at times. Trey Kaufman-Renn, I think, has been a beast. And then Caleb First is your ultimate role guy. And I think with Heidi and who's the other guy? Colvin, that's right. If they show up in role play, sure. I don't think Purdue will have any trouble getting past them here. Man, I'd love to pick them, but I'm not going to do it. I think they have maybe a chip on their shoulder as well to prove that they can make this run without Zach as well. I've loved watching Trey Kaufman-Renn play this year. He's been a blast to watch. The defensive end, to your point, streaky at times as well, but I'm going to roll Boilers here. I'm not ready to write them off just yet.
Hell yeah. Well, I love to hear that. And I do think as well, it was a very good draw for Purdue. Like we mentioned earlier, I don't know how they got a 4 seed higher than Michigan, but if you switch like that Michigan-Purdue matchup, I think Purdue's in a lot of trouble against UC San Diego. So lucked out there. Also High Point, they're not known for their defense. They're known for their offense, which does fit with Purdue's model of how they win games as well. So sure. I think things are leaning Purdue's way on paper for me, but the last time we played a 13 seed, we lost to North Texas. So and we had Jaden Ivey. So who knows? Shout out Matt Painter. Please prove me wrong again. Also, please just don't lose in the first round. Lose anywhere else, and I'll be happy with this tournament.
Nice.
But beautiful. And moving on to the higher seeded teams here in this region. 3 seed was actually Kentucky, which I was a bit surprised by with the injury problems they've had. They're facing off against Troy, which I think actually will be a pretty good game. And then 2-15 matchup, Tennessee, who made the SEC championship, is facing off against Wofford. I'm actually very high in Wofford, if I'm being completely honest as well. I'll talk about them a bit. And then the 1-seeded Houston Cougars, which is a big team for me here going forward. They're facing off against SIEU or SIUE, one of those two. The OVC champs, which is like Murray State. They usually have a good team, but they're 16 seeded this year. And honestly, with these 3, I guess more just like Kentucky, Troy, I think this has upset potential. What are your thoughts about these lower seeds?
Yeah, I see no problem with Houston, SIU. Although I will just SIUE. I will say the head coach of SIUE used to be an assistant under Tom Crean at Indiana. So there's your fun fact there. That's the guy who had like what did he have the scissors framed above the locker room? He was
Oh,
like,
gotcha.
he I don't know if you watched the
Yeah.
championship game, but he was like, I hung these up years ago. And I said, we're gonna cut down the nets with these scissors, and they cut him down with those scissors. So he's got a narrative going there.
Love that.
I I love this Houston team. I love that they're healthy, stay healthy, and they'll be good. I'll let you talk about Tennessee Wolford, but I do have Tennessee there. I'll let you talk on Wolford there. Man, anyone would just love to pick Kentucky here to lose because it's just kind of what they do. But this is not John Calipari's Kentucky team. This is Mark Pope's Kentucky team. And I like Pope. I think he's been a solid hire for them. Maybe a higher seed than I would have put Kentucky at, but I think they could get past Troy. I know it'll be a good game, and it's really on upset alert for sure. But I'm going with Kentucky there. But tell me how you feel about Wofford.
Originally, I did actually pick Wofford. I don't know. I did watch their championship game, and they weren't like the highest seeded team in their conference, but they were just playing very, very well. Like their shooters were going absolutely crazy. I think they dropped about 95 points in their championship game. And I am I'm a Tennessee hater in general. I'll be straight up about it. Rick Barnes, not a big fan. Defense, defense, defense. The difference with this year's team is they have a lot of good offense as well. Obviously, Chaz Lanier, the North Florida transfer, has been absolutely great for them. So I did have Wofford picked originally, but I did end up going with Tennessee. I actually have them advancing pretty far. But I agree too. I mean, I feel like a lot of people are picking Troy over Kentucky just because obviously last year we had the Oakland, St. Peter's a couple of years before that. So Kentucky has been high seeded and lost early, which as a Purdue fan, I can relate to. But I think that was a great point of new coaching. This is an entirely new team. Obviously, they've had health problems, but they still have Kobe Brea, who's a great shooter. They still have Owe running the point, who's an absolute dog. Decent, versatile Big Ben who can shoot it, who can pass it. I still like them over Troy here, although I do think it would be very fun to see them lose again. So a little bit more interesting with the high seeds. Hopefully with those games, hopefully they're not complete blowouts. And I will be putting money on Wofford money line just for shits and giggles. But moving deeper into it, let's talk a little bit sleepers. I'll kick it off because we talked about the Texas Longhorns a good amount here. I do like them winning that first round matchup and then second round as well, actually, too. I like them making a run to the Sweet 16. I feel like it's a thing with the first 4 games. There's always somebody who makes a run.
There's always one.
I never really picked them just because I don't see that happening a ton. But Texas's draw here, I think, does fit in with their overall play style, as they would get matched up with Kentucky in the second round if they do win that first game, which, again, both kind of are more offense focused. Kentucky has a ton of injuries. They've played each other, so they know what to expect. So I'm going to take them into the second round. What are your sleepers for this region?
Yeah, not a ton from me here. I do have I have Clemson getting past Purdue. I think that's where the boiler run ends.
Yeah.
But I love Houston in this region. I got them getting past the Zags, which I don't think is the Zags we know them of. I think they can handle Clemson pretty well. I mean, we loved Houston last year, but they just had injuries, right? That's been their story. I think Kelvin Sampson, I think it's time. I think it's time for him to try to get there and get to the mountaintop. So I do have, I went for the narrative here. I have Kentucky, Tennessee, just having that nice rematch. And it's very hard to, beat a team 3 times, but I think Kentucky does it.
Oh, wow. Love that.
I'm doing it, going for it, but I think that's where the run ends. And then I do have Houston going into my Final Four in this region.
Nice.
Maybe boring, but I did it.
If it's right, it's never boring. And I do agree with you as well. Houston is definitely my pick for this region. And I do like them a little bit past that as well, spoiler alerts. But I agree. I think Kelvin Sampson is just due in general. They've had so many tough breaks with injuries in the tournament specifically. I mean, Jamal Shed last year was just brutal, and I feel bad for them. And then they reloaded this year. They brought in Milos Uzan from Oklahoma. Love him. Really good. They still have LJ Cryer. Juwan Roberts has been banged up. I think that's the big X factor. If he's back and he's healthy, that's going to be massive. But Sharp, their other shooter, has been playing really well in the Big 12 tournament. And then they have 2 other big guys who are just massive units. Francis and Tugler. Watch out for those guys defensively. I would not want to play Houston anytime soon in this tournament because of those guys specifically. But other than that, too, I do have the matching up with Tennessee in the Elite Eights. A bit of chalk of kind of just going 1-2 down the line there. But again, I picked Wofford originally, and then looking at Wofford's roster, again, similar to the Michigan game, Wofford doesn't have anybody, I don't think, over like 6'8", 6'9". And Tennessee's big guy, Felix Okpara, I think he's like at least 7 foot, lanky as hell. So he's going to beat everything up. So I liked him in that matchup. And then UCLA second round, I did have UCLA originally as well. But thinking about it more, I mean, that Mick Cronin brand of basketball is basically the exact same as Rick Barnes at Tennessee. Defense, toughness. So I think they do have more offense than UCLA altogether. So kind of just slowly marching through, but eventually losing to Houston here. Looking at our previous bracket, I think this is the defensive bracket versus our last one was the offensive bracket. So I'm running with defense here, and I got Houston going all the way to the Final Four.
Nice.
Let's hand out some hoopies, of course. Carter, who's your player of the region?
Going with the Houston narrative still. I'm going the 5th-year senior, LJ Cryer. Yeah. To your point, he was on. He was on that Baylor team, right? That won it all, right? Would he been a freshman?
I believe so. Yeah, I think he was a freshman.
So you could say he knows how to win a championship. Not sure, but I mean, he was on the bench, so what much did he do? But to your point, I think he's great on the defensive end, but I think he really helps their offense a lot. Houston's probably known as more as a defensive team, but I think LJ Cryer is kind of the spark plug that gets the offense going. Shooting the 3 ball really well. And I just think Sampson's team's full of dogs, and I think that we're going to ride. And I think LJ Cryer is going to take on that leadership role and make it happen. So I'm going to roll with him.
Great pick. Yeah, he's got the experience. He's got the shooting. Really all you're looking for in a March guard, I feel like.
Absolutely.
In my player of the region, I'm actually going to give it to, I don't know how to say his first name. I think it's Milos Uzan, who I just mentioned.
Yeah.
Also from Houston. Their other guard who they brought in from Oklahoma in the offseason. I think he has changed their dynamic a ton. Because Cryer last year, when Shed went down, kind of had to play that point guard role.
Yeah.
I think he's much better off the ball. Just stick him in the corner. If anybody moves a second off of him, he's going to be launching it. But Uzan kind of is the dribble drive, weave in between, can find the big guys, really can distribute. So I just like his role kind of in the offense altogether. But this crew is a very well-rounded team. So you can really name anybody from Houston, and I don't think you're going to go wrong here.
Nice.
Awesome. And then I'll save my underrated player. Who's going to be your underrated hoopy?
I just love Ian Schefferlin from Clemson, the chef.
The chef, yeah. Shout out.
He just works, man. He just grinds. He's kind of crafty around the rim. He's a little more he's like what Mike Woodson would probably love. Like he's really old school, but he's just better at it than Mike Woodson would probably do with him. Anyway, last time I'll mention Mike Woodson on this podcast ever, I think. So, I think they're just the sneaky pick, and I think he's kind of the grit on the offensive end on the glass that might get them, over the hump and maybe into the Sweet 16, and everyone will be like, how'd they do it again? Just love that kid. So I'm going to go with him, going with the chef.
Shout out the chef. I forgot to mention too, but I definitely have Clemson beting Purdue in the second round, which we agree on. And
you didn't have to say
it. I did for my own psyche, but the chef is a dog. I mean, just a rebound machine, and he's developed a little jumper as well. So yeah. I think that's a great pick. I'll have the chef's hat out if they make another run. Well, I guess not if they beat Purdue, but still maybe. My underrated hoopy, it's going to go to a feller named Kyler Filowich, who is the center for Wofford. Stat line, not bad. He's 6'8". He averages 12 points, 9 boards. So this guy's a tank. But the reason I picked him, he shoots his free throws granny style.
Oh, yeah, that my guy. Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen this guy, but he's a goober. He usually rocking a headband and those granny style free throws just got to me. So if Wofford does pull off a miracle against Tennessee, I mean, he's going to be the face of the tournament, whether he plays well or not. So I had to shout out Kyler Filowich. Again, shout out to you if you're listening. But he's actually been pretty decent from the free throw line with the granny shot as well. So maybe I'm
It works.
putting it out there. He's going to hit two grannies to ice the game at the end, and
Oh,
be
it
the
would be
hero.
electric. God, I can't wait. Let's do it.
So shout out. The hoopy might be his biggest award ever as well. So you're welcome. So that wraps up the Midwest. We can move on to our last region here, which is the West region. And again,
Ooh.
kicking it off with the best matchups here. Another really fun 8-9. We have the 8-seeded double defending champs, my boy Bobby Hurley. I hope you lose. UConn Huskies, and they're facing off against another SEC team, the Oklahoma Sooners, who again barely squeaked in, but have a good squad. I like Jeremy Fears a lot, actually. Another freshman guard who's been playing really well. And it's kind of the matchup of the freshmen with Liam McNeely, obviously being the main player for UConn, other than their supporting guys who have been on these championship teams who are also pretty solid. But I mean, Hurley struggled this year. I mean, they kind of had a midseason collapse for a little bit and then got back on track to get this 8 seed. I am going to pick UConn, but I really do hope they lose. They'll lose pretty quickly after this, regardless. But are you rocking with the defending champs here?
I just making an editor's note that Bobby didn't come in and take Dan's job. Danny Hurley's coaching. Just making that clear. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here in March and not pick UConn to win a game. I can't do that after watching them. Obviously, it's not the same team. They struggled. I think Liam McNeely's starting to get his feel back. Caravan and DR need to really, be the glue guys of that team. But I'm not going to sit here and not pick UConn for at least a game. And I would rather be proven wrong and they lose than for them to win and be like, I told you so. And then Dan Hurley comes to my house and flips me off, So
he'll do it too. Yeah.
He will. God, he'll do it. So yeah, I gotta roll with the Huskies here. Yeah. No more words need to be said. But
I agree.
They haven't been the best this year, but it's UConn still. So
I'm hoping for their downfall for sure. But yeah, and I like calling him Bobby just because his brother is better than him, even if he's a really good coach. So
love it.
Danny, he's going to be screaming at the refs if they win or lose. Hopefully it's an L, but we'll both pick them and probably be right. But another really fun coaching matchup in the 7-10 matchup here in the West region. It is the 7-seeded Kansas Jayhawks. They got to be their lowest seed in a long time, facing off against Calipari's own, the Arkansas Hogs. They're back in the tourney at the 10 slot. What's your thoughts on this game?
This pod is awesome. Obviously, you got Rick Pitino down here in the 2-15 game as well. So
yeah,
the committee really cooked with this one for sure. Man, just two coaches and teams that I don't really care for at all. Arkansas's got Boogie Flan back.
Massive. Yeah, so big.
And I was trying to think about if that makes them better or not.
It's a good question.
So I don't know. And Hunter Dickinson makes me so goddamn mad that I'm going with Kansas because of it. Because I just know they're just going to make me mad and do it. So I think Cal will give him a nice pat on the back for getting the Hogs to the tourney for his first year. I think Kansas, has the slight edge. I don't love their team. Haven't loved them all year, but I don't know. Something about me just says Kansas in this one. So yeah, I'm gonna roll with that because I feel like Cal's gonna be looking a game ahead because he's gonna be like, man, I get to play Patino. Let's go. And then he's gonna fall short of it. So yeah. I'm gonna go Kansas. I'm gonna go Dickinson to piss me off one more game. AJ Storr, I think, is playing a little better now.
Yeah, surprisingly.
So if he keeps that up, I think they could be solid. So
I agree.
Yeah.
That was one of my notes too. I think he's the X factor. I mean, if he has 15 points, I think they win pretty easily. And yeah, I mean, it is crazy that Arkansas even got in after the terrible, terrible start they had, and Boogie Flan going down obviously didn't help. And Thiero, their other really good player, went down as well, and they still made it in somehow. But this Kansas team, I mean, they still have the experience too. DeJuan Harris obviously is one in Natty. KJ Adams, I do like him, even though he struggled a bit this year. And then, like you said, Big Dick in the middle. Never was a big fan of him. He has been a little bit more efficient this year, which I've been happy to see because in the past he just bombs threes and usually doesn't make any. Now he shoots one or two and makes it. And mostly hangs around in the paint where he is supposed to be. So I think his role's gotten better. They also killed it in the transfer portal. They got AJ Storr and Rylan Griffin from Bama, who was on that Final Four team last year. So if like their bench can break out and have a couple good games, I think they could make a run. But that just doesn't seem to be kind of what this team is this year. But I am still going to take Kansas in the first round here, and should be a really fun matchup in the second round versus Patino, like you're saying.
So fun.
This next game, really, really interesting one as well. The 6-11 matchup in this region, maybe the one that I could talk about the most, honestly, is the 6-seeded Missouri Tigers of the SEC versus the Drake Bulldogs, who are the 11 seed. Brutal matchup, I think, for both teams, as these are both solid squads. But this has been another bait 11 pick. Did you take the bait here?
I took it here.
Yeah, understandable.
Yeah, and it's that Ben McCollum energy. I thought he was going to be our coach. So I obviously did a lot of digging on him. So he's won everywhere he goes, and he has won Power 5 games as well. So I like Drake here, but I also like Mizzou. So this was really tough. Like I've loved their play this year. They pulled off some great upsets, some big wins. And shout out to Tamar Bates, a former Hoosier. He's done pretty solid for them over there as well. But man, I'm just giving Drake the slight edge because I just want to this. I'll go ahead and say that like this is my region where I have picked a few upsets. So Drake here, I'm trying to manifest that. I like Ben McCollum. I like his coaching style, and dude just kind of wins. So I think he'll try to get it done here in this first round, despite the bait.
It is bait, but it's bait for a reason, I think, with Drake. Really great team. Like you said, too, I mean, winner everywhere he's gone. Obviously brought a ton of guys from D2 who were champions there. Seeing if they can kind of do the same thing at D1, which they definitely have the talent to do it. It's kind of the clashing play styles of this game is interesting, too. And I had to go into some in-depth research on this one. Shout out Aiden. But the Drake Bulldogs have the slowest pace of play out of any college basketball team in the country. They absolutely gruel that shot clock down to the bottom. The reason they're really good with that is they hit insane shots at the end of the shot clock. Shout out Sturts, who is their point guard and best player. I don't know how he makes half these shots that he takes, but he hits every single one. So that's gonna. I think that's what it's gonna come down to: is can Missouri change that play style? Can they push the pace? Can they force turnovers? Because their offense is actually really good too. Like you said, Tamar Bates, I love. They got Mark Mitchell from Duke last year. He's been really good. Tony Perkins from Iowa is a solid point guard. Caleb Grill is that guy. Iowa State transfer. Maybe a bit problematic in the past at Iowa State, but this year he's been unbelievable. He's similar to this Sturts guy where he could pull from half court, and I would expect him to make it every single time. He's that good of a shooter. Yeah. So, and Dennis Gates, I love as their coach. They had 0 conference wins last year, 0.
It's crazy.
And they're a 6th seed in the tournament. So it's kind of similar to that Michigan where it's a tough draw for both teams. I would love to see both of them move on. But I am going to take Missouri here. Originally, I did have Drake winning a few games. And then the more I thought about this Mizzou squad, I had to, keep him rolling. So a tough one.
Oh, yeah.
Another one I'm excited to watch, but we're going to roll with the Tigers in the second round. Yeah.
Love it.
I was curious too. Would you have preferred which Drake coach did you really want for IU? Did you want McCollum, or are you happier with DeVries?
I mean, I'm happy with DeVries. He wasn't really on my radar per se. I guess just because I was just also alongside like much of America, I was just kind of in West Virginia's boat and supporting them.
Yeah.
And obviously, they've won a lot of great games this year as well. So, I mean, I guess I got too attached to McCollum. I've watched some interviews with him. So
understandable.
I still don't know all I need to know yet about DeVries. I haven't done my deep dive yet because I found out, and then 30 minutes later we got on this call. So I'm here in it with you in real time. But I will just say anyone is better than Woodson. So I'm happy. Happy.
Love that. Yeah. Well, awesome. We'll see if we got the right Drake guy or not. Hopefully so. Hopefully not in my case. But moving on to the upset watch of this region, which I'm excited to hear from you. But the first one is, I think, another pretty bait pick with the 5-seeded Memphis Tigers taking on the conference champions in the Mountain West. Shout out to Colorado State, who are one of the hottest teams in the country as well. I believe they've won over 10 games in a row, including running the table in the Mountain West tournament. And off the bat, too, I do have to shout out, there's a Purdue legend on this squad, Ethan Morton. is their sixth man. And I think that's going to be the key matchup here is Ethan Morton versus PJ Haggerty from Memphis, who All-American. I think he dropped like 45 in the American semis tournament. Just really, really good. But the problem with Memphis is Tyrese Hunter. I don't think he's playing. He was in
I
a
don't
boot
either.
during the American tournament. And I do like that backcourt to me is one of the top backcourts. But without him, they're just a little bit exposed. They do have Dane Danger, who I love just for his name, and also he's been playing really well. But I am going to take Colorado State here and take the 12th seed.
I am as well. And I was
Mountain
going
West.
back Mountain West. See. This is why I couldn't take.
Gotcha.
Yeah, whoever it was. I can't
Utah
remember
State.
anymore.
Utah State.
That's why. Yeah, that's why I couldn't do it. I can't pick 4 Mountain West teams. Just can't do it. Same way. Same reason you said. I was debating it, and then I was looking into it, and I suspect Tyrese Hunter is still out, and that was ultimately the kicker for me. On top of Colorado State has really just caught fire as of late, so I like that momentum. After a not so great middle there of the season, so they've really picked it up. But yeah, ultimately it came down to that. I think Penny Hardaway. I think he's a good coach. He's just maybe not my flavor per se, but yeah, I went Mountain West here, so I went Colorado State.
I love it. And again, could go either way. It is a very bait 12 pick, probably the baitiest one that I took, but it should hit. Nick Clifford, shout out to him. He was on the Colorado State team last year and has really gone crazy this year. So take his points. Don't take Ethan Morton's, even though he's a legend. But sweet. And then jumping to the 4-13 matchup. For me, it's pretty straightforward with this one. It's the 4-seeded Maryland Terrapins taking on Grand Canyon in that 13 slot. Shout out, I believe Scott Drew is still the coach there, and they've been in the tournament a few times now, but haven't really made any noise from my recollection, and I think that'll continue on this year. We talked about the Terps a tiny bit, but I do think they probably have, if not, one of the best starting fives in the country. Tons of weapons. I mean, Derek Queen, unbelievable. He's going to be a lottery pick as a freshman, and then they have experience at the guard slot and the big slot. I mean, Jacoby Gillespie, I think, is a very underrated transfer from Nova. They have Rice and Miguel who can shoot it. They're kind of just deep all over, and I think they can make a deep run in this tournament for sure. I think they're Lopes. You think the Antelopes have any chance here?
I could see it happen. I think definitely after the Crab 5, it's a bit of a slope, a jump off in terms of talent and productivity for sure.
Liv Geronimo off the bench, IU guy.
There you go. Yep, a lot of former Hoosiers in here, so that should tell you that they made the right decision. But yeah, I have no problem here in picking the Terrapins. I've liked them. I've liked watching them this year. We almost beat them. There's a lot of almost beat 'ems in here for Indiana. So
yeah, Rodney Rice, crazy clutch shot to win that one. But sweet. And then the higher seeded matchups in this region, we have 3-seeded Texas Tech taking on 14-seeded UNC Wilmington. We have the Johnnies at the 2 spot, which I love they got that, facing off against Omaha, who supposedly isn't terrible, but I don't know too much about him. And then the 1-seeded Florida Gators, who I'm very high on. They're taking on Norfolk State in the first round. Any possible upsets here for you? And none really on my radar.
No. And even if you want to look at that Texas Tech, UNC Wilmington, I think this Texas Tech team is really good. And I don't think this UNC Wilmington team is very good. I just like the Rick Pitino redemption arc.
He's back.
Like
yeah,
he's so back, and this Florida team just is cranking on all cylinders right now. So yeah, I've got no qualms there in picking those guys to advance. No upsets there.
Awesome. Definitely on the same page, and we could jump straight to the sleepers. You were hyping it up a little bit. Who's a few of your favorites here?
Well, I hyped it up just for the first round upsets, because I will say that my Sweet 16 is 1, 2, 3, 4, which I hate, but that's how it is.
Love that.
Yeah, I think the Drake and Colorado State run ends pretty swiftly, although I could see Colorado State breaking out. I don't see Drake getting past Texas Tech. I think they're just a really good team that maybe a lot of people maybe just don't know or haven't watched, just because, I don't know, maybe Texas Tech isn't the brand name that you think of. So if anything, I like Colorado State over Maryland to be the potential one. But
Nice.
I just don't think I don't have it in my bracket, but that's who I would ride with other than Drake, which might be against other people's better judgment, but that's what I'm doing. That Kansas St. John's game is going to be a lot of fun if
Yeah,
that's the matchup. Even if it's Arkansas St. John's, that arguably that's more fun just for the
for sure.
narrative of that. But I really like the Johnnies here. So I've got the Johnnies and the Gators in my Elite Eight here.
Yeah. And I also have the same as well. Like I said, it's hard not to pick those two teams just for how well they're playing right now. Um,
Yeah.
Florida has been unbelievable down the stretch here. I mean, their guard, Walter Clayton Jr., just scores at will. Like anytime he wants a three ball, he's going to get it basically. And he went crazy in the tournament last year in their short stint. So I expect him to be insanely clutch. They added in Elijah Martin, the FAU transfer, who I'm a big fan of. I think with that backcourt and then the big guys that they have, Condon's the standout guy, but all of their bigs are just really good passers, I feel like, and find kind
Mhm.
of those open shooters. I mean, offensively, that I feel like if they don't score 100 points, they probably get ripped in the locker room. So watch out for them. And then the complete opposite spectrum is the St. John Johnnies, who are all defense in your face. Literally will do anything possible to not allow you to score the ball. So I think they're primed for an Elite Eight matchup. I don't know what the hell's going to happen there. I did pick Florida, but I think it could go either way. Um, Before that, the only difference really is I did have Missouri beating Texas Tech in the second round. Um, I'm all
Nice.
in. Yeah, I'm all in on the Tigers. They're kind of my big sleeper for this region. Like you said, Texas Tech, I think, is very, very good. One of their guys, it was Darian Williams, I believe, was hurt for the Big 12 tournament,
Yeah.
but I think they were just resting them for the NCAA, which I don't mind. I'd rather do that than the opposite way. But obviously, JT Toppin, such a dog, one of the best transfers in the country. Elijah Hawkins, really underrated guard. All of their guards are really good, honestly. So I like them, but I took Mizzou. And yeah, I got Florida going all the way to the ship, actually, as well. Spoiler alert. So
Nice.
fun region. This is a stacked region as well. I feel bad for Maryland and Texas Tech because this 1-2 combo is not one to mess around with.
Well, I guess spoil mine in the same regard that I have a team from the West going to the ship, but I have the Johnnies instead.
Love that.
So we'll see. So yeah, we
All in
both had
on
Michigan.
Patino. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
we both
awesome.
had Michigan State losing it there, but
Tough.
what
No,
can you do?
no natty for Tom Izzo. I mean, it's been 25 years. He's not due for another one. I don't
Ah,
think yet. Give it 10 more years. But awesome. So that is our picks for the last region there. Of course, we got to hand out some hoopies though, and I'll kick us off because I did just mention him. I'm going to give my player of the region hoopie to Walter Clayton Jr.
that's mine.
Again,
Yep.
awesome. Back to another double hoopie. Shout out.
Bang.
He's a dog. I mean, like I said, this Florida team has been so fun to watch, and I think he's going to have a really great tournament, especially with the game that he had last year. And sweet, and we can just jump straight to who's your underrated hoopie that you wanted to hand out.
My underrated one, even though I'm not sure they're going to go far, but maybe they will because of this guy, and that's Bennett Sturts, which we talked about earlier
Nice.
for Drake. Obviously, it was with Ben McCollum at the D2 level, I'm pretty sure. Came with him to Drake.
Yeah.
Where was he at? It was Northwest Missouri State or something.
I think that might be right, actually. That's a snipe.
Okay. Nice. That's
Could
off
be
the
wrong.
dome. I love it. Fact check me later, listeners.
Yeah.
But he's been great. He's averaging like almost 20 points a game, and as you said, the shots he's making are ridiculous. From the 2-point range, beyond the arc, he's great. I did pull this stat as of Selection Sunday. Starts led the nation in win shares with 8.6. That's
Yeah.
cool. Great stat.
Which I think says a lot because how is he averaging 20 points a game when they are the slowest moving team
I know
in the country?
it's
Craziness.
insane. But yeah, they really slowed the ball down, so I think we'll get a good chance to watch him cook
Yeah.
in real time. So yeah, that would have given my underrated breakout player hoopie too.
It's a great pick. Deserved of a hoopie, no doubt. My pick, it's actually going to go to somebody who I picked them to lose the first game, but I'm going to give it to Dane Danger. This
Dang,
guy.
danger.
I was watching the American Championship game, and he had a sequence where he grabbed a defensive rebound and just took off and dribbled all the way up the floor, and then did a
Post
Euro
haste.
step and one, which for like a 250-pound big guy. I was just ecstatic to see. So shout out to him. I think he
Love
will
it.
give Colorado State fits, but unfortunately threes beat twos the majority of the time.
You're killing it with the math today, by the way.
On
Huge.
point. But also his name's Dane Danger, so had to mention him again. Dumb
Yep.
names. Ottawa, one more time for that
We love
guy.
it.
Well, beautiful. So that wraps up our hoopies and our predictions for the different regions. Let's quickly break down our Final Four and national championship picks. And Carter, you can kick us off with talk about your Final Four and Natty.
Sure. I've got my Final Four is Michigan State playing St. John's. And then I have Duke playing Houston. So I have 2-2-1-1,
Nice.
which, it's, I feel like all the madness always happens. And then usually it shakes out to, it's usually the top teams here.
Yeah.
And again, I already talked about kind of the parity of this year where it feels pretty top heavy with the top teams. And to your point, transfer portal, the NIL, all of that, definitely a factor in this as we're finally kind of maybe starting to level out with all that. And the COVID years are done. Great. After this year. So finally, thank God. See you later. So Michigan State, St. John's, we already mentioned it. I think the team of destiny might end here for Tom Izzo because I just like the destiny of St. John's a little more. So I'm rolling with the Johnnies. I think there will be a Big East team in the championship game again, 3 years in a row, and it will not be Dan Hurley. So
please no.
I'm thrilled
Anybody
with
else?
that. Anybody else, please. And then over here on the other side, I got Duke Houston. And I think much like these Duke teams in the past, Zion Williamson, they can't quite finish the job. So I've got Houston, I've got Kelvin Sampson get into the championship game, and I have St. John's playing Houston, which I would be so thrilled with either team to win. I probably want Houston to win more. And for that reason, I'm picking St. John's. I'm going very against my gut this year.
I like
which
that.
is, I think, will do me good job this year. Do me good deed. So that's who I got. I got Rick Pitino on the mountaintop once again at his, what is it? His fifth team has turned 5 teams seasons around in the first 2 years. And I think this is it. This is the moment for him. So I think he'll be back, and then I don't know. He'll coach till he dies. So good for him.
Probably. Well, shout out. And it'd be historic too. I mean, yeah. Well, I guess he technically didn't win a championship with Louisville, even though obviously he did. But,
oh, and I also will say the Lou Carnesecca narrative I'm also following too, who passed away this year, St. John's coaching legend, of course. Yeah. So I'm kind of riding that high too, similar to like Kobe in 2020 and the Lakers won, kind of riding that high. Yeah. It didn't work for the Bob Knight legacy. that did not pan out, but it could work here. It was close.
Yeah. You need something to motivate the guys all the way to the finish. Once you get to the Final Four, some teams are just happy. Like you said, I feel like that happens with Duke sometimes, but to go all the way to the end, you need that extra push. Good picks, honestly. Mine are fairly similar. I do have Michigan State in the Final Four, and I also have the 2-2-1-1. So my other 2 seed is Bama, and then my 2 1 seeds are Florida and Houston.
Nice.
We do have 2 overlapping teams there, which I love. And then in those matchups, I do like Florida to take down Sparty. I think that offense will just be way too much for them to kind of keep up with their not so great scoring. And then on the other side, Houston and Bama, a complete opposite styles going against each other there. Obviously, Houston with the defense, Bama with the offense. Defense wins championship, guys. I don't know if you heard that before, but give me the Houston Cougars going to the ship. Like I said, I think they're just due in general. And I do have them actually prevailing over Florida as well, taking down double big boy SEC offenses in the Final Four. I think would be a ton of fun. And I'm riding with the Cougars. Yeah, I think I picked them a couple years ago when they had that really good Marcus Sasser team. And Kelvin Sampson is such a great coach. I think he's going to have one here pretty shortly. So, but Patino's also a great coach. I like that both of us are at least picking people who have good experience and have been there in the past. I feel like that does breed results more than anything deep into March.
Hell yeah.
But amazing. Those are our picks for the 2025 March Madness bracket. I can't wait for Thursday to come. It's only a couple days away now, but for me, this first weekend is one of my favorites of the year. And this is one of my favorite episodes that we do all year as well. So had to come back, even if it is a one-off. And thank you, obviously, Carter, as well, for coming back. Always a good time. I feel like when we do these.
Oh yeah, this is a joy every year. Love breaking down the brackets with you. It's really crazy because we all have different picks. You and I do, but it's strange. They're both perfect brackets. I can't explain it. It's a
True.
paradox. But yeah, we know more than just movies. We know our sports. We love basketball. This is the best couple weeks in the world. So thrilled to chat it up with you, and we'll see who comes out. Do you want to plug? We have a nice bracket group. If
Yeah,
this comes out in time, I don't know if it will,
it
but
should. Yeah. It should
we got
come
a
out,
bracket.
I believe Wednesday, maybe early Thursday. But if you're listening to this and the games haven't started, we have an awesome bracket group to join. So reach out to obviously Carter or myself, and at $5 entry. But we usually get a decent amount of people in there. So if you get lucky and you pick a few games that we probably said not to, you'll probably come away with a big pool prize. So reach out and definitely get involved with that. Then obviously too, wanted to plug the RCR podcast. You guys, I have not checked out your Parasite episode yet. Do you guys talk a ton about like memories of murder and some of his other projects, or is it more just focused on Parasite?
Well, we definitely talk about Memories of a Murder and those other movies just to talk about kind of the themes in Parasite, but it's mostly
Okay.
Parasite focused and centric. We give a little bit of the background and Bong Joon-ho's work, but yeah, we're mainly focused on Parasite.
Okay.
So,
I'll listen to it then. I didn't want to get spoiled with the memories of murder just because
oh,
I do really want to see that.
you won't get spoiled, but a great movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
So go check them out. Also, I wanted to shout at your guys' most recent seeing double, which was Daredevil and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which I just love both those movies. So go check it out there. Plug it again. Where can they find you guys at?
Yes, sir. You can find us at roughcut_pod on Instagram and TikTok, or you can find us on Twitter at roughcut_co. Obviously, follow us, check us out, listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. The Rough Cut Retrospective. We got a nice Gene Hackman episode coming up this week in honor of the legend who we lost this month earlier, or last month, I suppose. So we'll be talking about some of our favorite movies of him and kind of breaking down his career. Should be a fun one. So yeah, check it out there.
RIP to a legend. Excited to hear you guys talk a little about Hoosiers, which I love that movie, obviously.
Oh yeah.
But awesome. Obviously, follow us everywhere here on the KHAP Podcast Network. I won't spell it out. You guys know how to spell it by now. And stay tuned for more pick and roll in the future. But appreciate you guys. See you next time.
Stay capping.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.